So those 5 steps in the musician's career, you could just insert your name, but I said, number 1, who was Fred Fischer? Number 2, what does Fred Fischer sound like? Number 3, get me Fred Fischer. Number 4, get me somebody who sounds like Fred Fischer. And then number 5 in this cycle is who is Fred Fischer. So it's trying to get some name recognition and some trust and all those things out there to be employable or hired by bands. And my current goal is to get on with a national touring artist or band. So that's my big focus at the moment is working on that. And I had some people send me some messages behind the scenes, and we're kind of questioning about, like, what are my motives in that? Like, can you be satisfied with your current situation? And yes, I think being satisfied or trying to further along whatever project I'm working in at the moment, I think that is important to promote those things, because the other thing's not guaranteed. Nothing is guaranteed in this crazy music business. And I've been in this music business professionally since 1990. And, and that was with Midline. And Midline had, if some people know the story of Midline, Midline's been around for 33 years now. I've been in the band for like 28 of those years. I got into the band right as 100.3 was a independently owned radio station called Pirate Radio, if anybody remembers Pirate Radio. Bob Lee was the owner of that radio station, and he put Midline on the radio. And if you go to our Midline Band YouTube page, there's a couple videos of the story behind the song, and one is that about the song Promise Me. So Promise Me was like Midline's big hit, if you will. We had a hit. Although Summer Sky is probably right up there with it. But Bob Lee had heard a Midline song on their Sunday night show, which it's pretty common. Rock radio stations on Sunday night will feature local artists. And so Midline was part of that here in Boise. And Bob Lee heard this song, came back to the radio station. Todd Dunnigan was being the DJ for those local shows at that time and wanted to know who the band was. And so then they met with the manager we had at the time, Wheeze, and said, I love this song. I want to play that, but I'm not going to put you on the radio unless you have a full album to promote. And so I was not in the band at that point, but I was in the band soon after. And so Midline went into the audio lab and recorded this album and gave them Promise Me, and they started playing it on the radio. Now, it's in the early 90s, I think radio stations had the ability, I don't even know what that word is. I was trying to say it and it didn't flow. Autonomy to do things on their own, where by the late 90s, early 2000s, a lot of radio stations got bought up and became part of a bigger conglomerate of stuff. And so then local stations started to lose their power to do certain things. But at any rate, so they put Promise Me on the radio, and that album spent 2 years on local radio in medium to hot rotation for 4 singles off of that record. So that really exploded the Midline brand at that point, which I came into the band as they got onto the radio. So I guess I say all of that, like Midline had all this momentum and things going forward, and we're still a band to this day, even though a couple lineup changes have happened. Anthony is the only original member from day one. But I'm close to that. As like I said, I've been in the band about 28 of those 33 years. So you get to know your brothers, right? And then all that being said, like my goal right now is to get on with a national touring act. Although I'm still in Midline, and we're still writing and recording music. And in fact, we're going to be shooting a music video on June 3rd We have the location set and everything's in motion for that. And then we gave ourselves a timeline of the beginning of July to release the song and the music video. And so that's the goal with Midline. And also on May 22nd, there will be a show announcement for a Midline show. And a few other bands will be on that bill. Really cool stuff. Can't say until the 22nd. So we do have that stuff going on. And then also with Cliff, like Cliff is writing and recording music, and a lot of that production is happening right here. And it's go time with Cliff and playing these shows. In fact, we have a weekend, Friday and Saturday, the Memorial Weekend. We will be up at Mountain Village Resort up in Stanley. And Stanley becomes a hot spot from about now until the fall. And it's a great place to visit and outdoor activity. And then at night you can go check out Cliff Miller, which I'll be drumming at Mountain Village Resort. They have a super nice stage and a great room and a great sound system. Oops, kicking the camera. And so all of those things are in motion. So I'm not ignoring those things as we go along. But for me personally, I'm trying to get on with a national touring band. So that brings me those 5 points. Who is Fred Fischer? What does Fred Fischer sound like? Get me Fred Fischer. So point number 3, that's where I'm trying to live, is get me Fred Fischer. Get on the radar and get onto something that's already has something that's built. Like Midline is still building something, Cliff is still building something, and all those things are great and fine, and I enjoy being part of that, and I'm not dismissing any of that or making it try to seem small. But I thought some of these messages and conversations I had with people since my last video were like, how can you be chasing this other thing and not give all this other stuff your full undivided attention? Well, I started thinking about a former neighbor of mine, Eric, who we're still friends with. But when I first met Eric, he had a job, and then 3 months later he had a different job, and then 6 months later he had a different job, and then a year later he had a different job, and he just constantly had a different job. All of his jobs that he had were still kind of in the same industry, which are computer related programming stuff. And I asked him, I thought that was really weird, because as me being an employer of people in the landscaping business, I would hire people, you would train them, and they would last for a little while, and then they would disappear. And then you retrain the next person, and it got really frustrating to be in that position. So I asked Eric about that, and he said, this is my life, and I'm always looking for the next best job that is going to pay him more money, which is going to provide him with the life that he envisioned for he and his family. And I thought, oh, maybe that makes sense. And so I think maybe you could parallel that with Get Me Fred Fischer, is that even though I enjoy being part of the local scene and doing these things, and there's always that hope and there's always that chance that, with Cliff, for example, Cliff's music is fantastic. We just got to get more people to hear it. And so, I think when I went to this music conference in November down in LA, which was, what is that, 7 months ago already? Close to that, 6-7 months ago. There's 100,000 songs being uploaded to Spotify every single day. So every 10 days, there's 1 million new songs to listen to. Well, how do you rise to the top of all of that? You got to get really creative with marketing and those kind of things. And not only that, I think the better your song is, the better chance you're going to have of those things happening. So I just don't want to confuse anybody out there that, oh, I'm playing with Cliff, or I'm playing with Midline, or I'm doing something with these people, that I don't care about those projects. I care very much about those projects. But I also care very much about my family nucleus and my dream that I've had since I was a teenager, sitting in my room jamming along to Rush records, or I was really into the 80s hair band records. Like Dokken was like the first one, like had a drum teacher that was really into Wild Mick Brown and Dokken. And so you're going to be influenced by people who are influencing you. And I had these shelves behind my head in my bedroom, and I had desk lamps. I think I had 3 desk lamps with different colored bulbs in them. And so I would shut the lights off in my room, and I would pretend that I was on a big stage somewhere. And I've had those chances and those experiences come along. I'm just looking for that experience to be my main job now, if that makes sense to anybody. So get me Fred Fischer. I'm trying to be on the radar, as I've said in a few videos before, that's the thing where I want to live. And so I was just thinking about my old neighbor Eric, and I'm looking at the life that he has right now, and it seems to be great. I actually talked to him a month ago. I saw him out and about, and he's got some Corvette that he races in some, I don't even know what it is. They go out by the fairgrounds, and if you ever see those cones all set up in the parking lots and the Corvettes and stuff, he's part of whatever that is. I'm not in that world. So, but Eric has a great life and a great family, and as far as I could tell, a great financial stability. And so that's what I'm building for myself just through music. Let's see. I have these notes that I write and try to, So, all that being said, those 5 steps to the musician's career: who is, what do they sound like? Get me someone who sounds like, and then who is. Number 5 is a scary one. So that seems like the end of your career. Who is Fred Fischer? So the beginning and the end are kind of the same. It's like up and then down. So I'm trying to live at that peak as long as possible. That's what I'm trying to do. So for me to get to the point where I am right now, I had to take advice from people who are already on the other side of that fence, or they're in that next lane up. They're on that next level. I'm not taking advice from people who are either at the same level that I am or below, because a lot of us musicians get jaded because we've done what we thought was important to our careers, and we've been in the van with stinky feet and 6 people to a hotel room and not make any money, and all of those things have influenced our choices, and rightfully so, because when that big rock star dream isn't coming true and the reality is like I need to make some money comes into the picture, right? So I've experienced all that myself, and there was a point in around 2009, I think, I told the guys at Midline, I said, I can't do this anymore. I'm out. I was looking at my wife and young children and just going, okay, this can't be about me anymore. So that was short-lived. So I had to get back in the game, and eventually Midline came back around into my life. But so like, who are we taking advice from? And like, so I would equate that also, like, somebody could tell you some advice and you could ignore that advice. Like, they don't know what they're talking about. But somebody that comes up that's on that next level that might even give you that same advice, you go, oh, okay. So let's see. Anthony Fagiano, the singer for Midline, one of my best friends ever in the entire world. I feel like he and I are on the same level because we've experienced so much together. If Anthony came and gave me some advice and said, you should really do this, I might go, I don't know. I really don't know. Because maybe he's looking at the world through a different lens now, because we've all experienced these same ups and downs and little peaks of success and the disappointment and stuff that all comes along with being in the music industry. And so maybe he's looking at me saying, yeah, we've made all these mistakes. Fred, you're the one that's still going, so maybe you should do these other things. Well, Anthony hasn't done those other things, and so I might ignore Anthony's advice. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, but if somebody like let's say Clive Davis, for example, comes along. Now he's way up here, Clive Davis is. And he discovers me, like, get me Fred Fischer, who is Fred Fischer kind of thing. And Clive Davis gives me the exact same advice that Anthony gave me. I'm probably more inclined to listen to Clive Davis. So we put our hope in would be validity into people's information depending on what experience that they have. So I'm seeking advice and taking advice from people who are already where I want to be, and things just continue to seem to evolve and get better. And I do have these moments come along where like, oh, and then another one will come along. So it just feels like it's just a matter of time before I get 3 across the board on the slot machine. It's not luck. It's not luck by any stretch. It's just hard work and dedication. Like Kenny Aronoff, for example. Who knows who Kenny Aronoff, the drummer, is? He played for John Cougar Mellencamp. That's like his big association. But he's also played with Melissa Etheridge and the Smashing Pumpkins and Joe Satriani. And he did Chickenfoot for a while. Huge session drummer. And just a monster drummer. And if you ever watch interviews with this guy, his energy is through the roof. And this is a guy in his late 60s who looks like he's 30 and plays like he's 22. He's just incredibly inspirational. And so he always talks about, like, he equates his career to like a running back in football. I don't know all the positions, but he's like, you don't make a touchdown every time, but you are always trying to make that touchdown. And people ask him, like, what's the key to success for him? And it was like hard work, dedication, and discipline. And like, there's no luck involved with that, you know? And so those kind of things infiltrate my thoughts and my process pretty heavily. So